We need like a cue card that slams down.
Like, okay. Welcome back to Verified Therapist, and this episode might be a train wreck.
There's a 9 out of 10 chance.
So we got some feedback from some lovely folks out there that are listening to us, you know, aka my brother and some friends. Mm-hmm. So we're going to try to fix as much as we can in this episode. Hopefully the audio sounds a little bit better today. We made some adjustments.
We're still on episode 3 though, so there's still plenty of room for us to just screw it all up. Just yes. Have patience.
Offer us some grace right now. So, and we're also going to add timestamps. If you don't care about a topic that we're going over, we're going to put timestamps down there so you can just skip to the next part.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to try to like keep our recaps shorter because we tend to be like, this is a quick recap, and then it's not quick just because it's so easy to talk about.
Yeah, it's very easy to go down the Vanderpump Taylor Swift rabbit hole.
It is, so. Yeah. The last episode that we left off on, we had kind of said something about talking about the power dynamics because we were talking about One Tree Hill. But as we talked this week, I mean, we're still going to cover that, but as we talked this week, we were talking a lot about Rachel Levis's podcast. For anybody who listened last week, she's kind of known as the other woman in the Tom Sandoval, Ariana Sandoval affair situation on Vanderpump. And she's come out with a podcast. I personally was very judgmental of this podcast and started changing my tune a little bit this week. We just thought it would be great to like dive into that deeper and just, even if you've not listened to that, still talk about like topics of like toxic relationships and love bombing and manipulation and all the things that kind of go into those kinds of dynamics.
Yeah, I think we both changed our tune after listening to the podcast and all of the episodes this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And kind of hearing her side of the story, which we had yet to hear. I think it took her until just now to be able to really talk about it.
Right. Right.
I mean, good for her. She was focusing on her mental health and didn't want to dive back into this and speak on it before she was fully ready to talk about it.
And I think it's really easy to see that as like skating accountability, but as we will talk about today, I think it was just requiring some growth on her side before she fully dove in.
So that's our main topic today. And do you want to go over the highs and lows for the week? You want to start off with that?
I'm trying to think about, I've literally been thinking about my highs and lows since yesterday. My high this week is that I was off work. So I know I talked about like taking some time off. I took this week off and I was able to do a lot of some like self-care. I was able to spend some time with my friends. I was able to detach from work a little bit, get rest.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
She sent me a Snapchat in her office.
We will talk about my workaholic tendencies on another episode.
And her office is 45 minutes from her house. So
yeah. Listen, I had clients that had to be seen. But yeah, I was able to kind of like participate in some self-care and really try to like focus on what I needed. Last week, I know I kind of said it wasn't a great week, but it kind of led to my mental health just not being in a really good spot. And that's just me being honest, because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, therapists are humans too.
Yeah. And Walgreens had messed up my medication, so I wasn't getting the medication amount that I needed. And so that kind of made it to where it was difficult for me to handle stressors. And so, you know, I got all the stuff back on track. I got the correct medicine this week. I had therapy. Like I said, spent some time with friends. So it was just a good week for me. And I feel some refreshed going back to work. I don't know that you ever feel 100% ready to go back to work when you've been off, but I feel some refreshed.
Because you're like, oh, well, that was a good week. What if I did this forever? I'm like sitting here not doing absolutely anything.
Yeah. What if I just found a sugar daddy and no sugar required? He just direct deposited into my account and I can pay my bills and just hang out.
Have you seen those TikToks of those girls talking about like women's suffrage and everything? Like, I'm ready to fight you guys for getting us rights to work.
I don't want to do the 40-hour work week.
Like, I want to be at home all day. Yeah.
I saw one where this guy was like, women weren't meant to work 40 hours a week. And the woman duetted it, and she was like, you tell him, King. You tell him. And I was like, felt. Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, what is your low?
My low is that I broke my selfie light. Actually, right after we stopped recording last week, I got up to like rush to do something and I tripped over the cord. I didn't fall, but it just like yanked it just enough to break it. So my lighting looks different because my selfie light is supposed to be delivered today by 9. So that's my low, is that the lighting looks a little bit different. And I'm insecure about it, but the show must go on.
The show must go on, and it still looks really good. So don't concern yourself with that.
I ordered that selfie light like on Monday, and it's currently Sunday, and it's not here yet. So
no, and this is a Jeff Bezos world. Like, dude, fix it. You have enough money, fix it.
Yeah. So what's your high and low? Tell me what your high and low is.
So I think my high for the week was meeting up with you this week and getting coffee and sitting there for like, how long were we at Barnes & Noble? For like, 5-6 hours?
5 hours. Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest high for the week because we just got to chit chat and talk about books and trauma dump and talk about the podcast.
What we do best. Yeah.
Trauma dumping is so good.
We went through 2 drinks at the Starbucks. We each had 2 drinks at the Starbucks. So
yes, and you bought my second drink for me, which I love. So except I asked for a drizzle of chocolate sauce, and it turned into a chocolate sauce drink.
Yeah,
so,
ma'am was an ocean. Yeah.
When I got that thing, I was like, "Where's the strawberry?" There was no pink; it was all brown.
That first guy that was there that literally top-notched our drinks, he had left. And whoever replaced him, I'm sorry, but maybe a barista's not her calling. That's okay.
Anyways, my low for the week was that damn chocolate sauce drink. No, I'm kidding.
Just really tanked it. It just really tanked the week.
No, my low for the week was I did not stay caught up on notes. And I ended up doing all like 20 of my notes on like Thursday evening, Friday morning, which is not fun to do. When you have all of those notes to do, on top of that, I had like 3 treatment plans to update. I shouldn't have waited for that long. I don't know what it was last week. I was like a week where I just could not focus on absolutely anything. So I kept putting them off and putting them off. The next thing I know, I have 20 notes stacked up and 3 treatment plans, and I have to do them all.
That's the worst part about being a therapist is paperwork. So much paperwork.
It's one of the most difficult parts about it. But I think this would be maybe another high to tie into it. When I was doing my note, I noticed that I didn't have a second signature on any of my notes, which means I am fully credentialed.
Yay!
So I guess that's a high for the. So.
That is a high.
Yeah,
we're growing up in the world.
We are, and if you didn't know, when you become a therapist, at least an LPCA, you have a supervisor that you have to do supervision with, and then most of the time, if you work for a company or work for something else, they have someone who signs off on your notes if you do like commercial insurance.
Yeah. Like you're under supervision. So like you're still a baby fetus therapist. So you need somebody who's like making sure you're doing what you're supposed to do.
So they sign off on your notes. And that's how it gets billed to the insurance and everything. But when you become an LPCC, you have to apply for credentialing. It's a pretty expensive process. Depending on the company that you work for, they might cover it, they might not. So if you're becoming a therapist, that's an expense that you might need to save up for because it is pretty expensive. But it takes a minute too for you to get fully credentialed because there's hundreds. It takes a minute. I applied for it in October, and so just this week it came through. Yep, figured out this week that I'm fully credentialed and I can sign my own notes, which also makes me like
terrified.
I'm just a baby.
Who's letting me do this?
Yeah, me and my friend Jamie, who is also another therapist, we were talking, and she actually, shout out to Jamie, she got a big promotion at the company that she
we're
works
excited.
For, so. But we were talking about getting all of this freedom in the workforce and kind of being like thrown out and being like, hey, you're on your own now. And that's how I felt signing my notes. I was like, I'm on my own now. There's no one to like correct me if I did something wrong. Exciting but terrifying at the same time because that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I still don't feel like I'm a full adult.
And when you're in grad school, like everything seems like when you start grad school, you think it's going to be forever until you finish. And then you get finished and you're like, that was quick. And then you get done with grad school and you're like, it's going to take me forever to get my hours and be fully licensed. And then you get to the point where you're fully licensed and you're like, how did this happen? How did I get here?
Yeah, literally. I remember Hannah, who was my supervisor, she made me apply, for full licensure and everything. And when we got that process and like, I got the email that I was, approved and was a full LPCC, it made my stomach drop. And she was like, congratulations, you're on your own. You got this. So...
Yeah, so my supervisor, Carol, is like, she's been my supervisor since practicum. So what, that's how many years? That's like 4 years every week. She's like, okay, like, it's about time to start applying for like full licensure. And I'm like, if you want to kick me out of your nest, just tell me. But she's like, no, like, this is what you're working towards. This is what, like, and I'm like, I don't want to go. I'm scared.
No, because it's a lot of pressure. But one good thing is, like Hannah in particular, I'm sure your supervisor too, but Hannah in particular, if I need anything, I can text her, I can call her. She is the busiest human being in the world, but she will be laying on a beach in Hawaii and answer my phone call.
Yes, Carol is the same way.
She is one of the most supportive people. I feel very lucky to have had her as a supervisor. So yeah, I'm sure you feel the same about Carol.
Oh, 100%. I tell people that constantly. Like, you get a supervisor that you don't want to let go of at the end because you trust them that much,
Hannah at KCA, which is Kentucky Counselor Association. They have a conference every year. I presented this past year. I look over while I'm presenting, and Hannah has her phone and is like,
"Aw, yeah,"
smiling,
just so proud,
and taking pictures. She looked like Kris Jenner, just in the corner, just like.
You're doing great, sweetie.
Yeah, but she was so supportive, and it was really funny at the end. The pictures that she got of me, I was very much so talking with my hands, and she said, "You must have got that from me because I talk with my hands too." All right. So now we're going to go into the recap of episode 2 of Vanderpump Rules. If you don't want to listen to this, timestamp will be there to skip through this. But
skip on through. Yeah.
But I think it's going to be interesting, even if you don't watch the show.
It was something this week. It was something.
Yes. I'm going to try my hardest not to just completely shit on Tom Sandoval, which I think is a very easy thing to do. I just want to talk about the first moment when he walked out of his room and was walking into the kitchen. How do I put this nicely?
Man is disheveled. He's disheveled.
Yes. Like, he was just trying to, I think it's a show, personally. I don't think anything is genuine that he does. Him slouched over and just being like, "Hi, Anne." Really?
And his poor assistant, Anne. I feel the most sorry for Anne than I've ever felt for anybody in my life. Too.
That poor woman has to be the mediator. Anne is Tom's assistant.
And Tom and Ariana are still living in the same house. So Tom wants to buy Ariana out. Ariana says, absolutely not. I'm not selling this house. Or she says, I want to sell it, but you're not buying it. So they're both literally living in this house, two separate lives, not speaking, only through Anne.
So poor Anne is in the middle of all of this. I mean, you're living with your ex, which is already like a sticky situation, but then you put cameras in this mix too.
And it's not a tiny house. It's not a small house, but it's also not like a mansion where they can each like live completely separate lives. Like you have Tom who comes down and then goes back up to his room. And then you have Ariana who comes down to the same kitchen, same living room. It's just so weird. Like it's weird to watch.
It's very much so a roommate like that you never want to see. But for Ariana to come downstairs, Anne had to text and be like, Tom is doing this. Like, he's not in here right now. So then Ariana came downstairs for the day and then was leaving, and then Tom could come back downstairs.
What are your thoughts on how the house situation is being handled?
In a sense, I understand what Ariana is doing. Like, you cheated on me. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't get what you want in the end. But also, I think for her to fully, it's not my place to say this in a way, but also for her to fully move on. I don't want to say let this go, but really just to move on and better her own self. I think she just needs to throw her hands up and be like, okay, like, I just want out of this house. It's not a good situation to be in, to constantly be in your home and walking on eggshells and having to text someone and be like, can I come downstairs because he's not there?
Right.
I mean, you have to do mental gymnastics every single day. And how, just looking at it from a mental health perspective, how much are you healing if you're still in that place? You know?
Right. And I don't know that you ever fully can. Here's the thing. I saw Ariana talking on a interview this week, and she was saying they picked cameras back up 3 weeks after the reunion to film this season. So in that place of her life, she is still very angry, understandably. People are saying that Tom specifically is saying that it's very petty. I feel like that she's still in the place where she has a right to be petty.
Yeah.
About it. And so it's like I am on the fence like you are about it, where like she would probably heal better and move on a lot easier if she would cut her ties on the house. But also Ariana's probably me, because I'd probably be like, you're not getting what you want. You destroyed everything. So you're the one who needs to pay consequences for that.
And that's where I like struggle, because I'm just like, if Tom really is sorry, then do something that shows that you're truly sorry. And I think one of the biggest things would be giving up that house.
Yeah. And I don't know why he wants to keep it so badly. Like, he says because he put solar panels on it. Okay.
And he built a gym in it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Turn that around and sell it. And he could get somewhere where he could do the same crap or have what he needs already. And so he can sit there and say that Ariana's being petty, but I think that he's being just as petty by not letting go of it either. I think, honestly, both of them need to throw their hands up and walk away from it.
Yeah, just to start the healing process, at least. Poor Maya.
Yeah, their dog.
Maya,
well, I guess Ariana's dog at this point.
Dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Maya is in the middle of this. It was really funny to see towards the end of the episode when Tom was having his birthday party, and Maya going into attack mode at anyone who knocked on the door. And as soon as they open the door, but then when they walk through the threshold of the door, she's just like wagging her tail and like super
and excited. Yeah. She's probably getting whiplash. She doesn't know who we like and who we don't anymore. She doesn't know who to trust.
But at least Tom is still taking care of Maya.
Thank God for that, because that would just be another notch in the belt of Tom Sandoval being not great.
And what are we going to talk about? The noise machine.
Again, I say, he has the same noise machine that I have in my offices, and you don't have to put it on the setting where it sounds like an airplane is taking off.
Yes, he has it on the white noise setting, which, if you know what white noise sounds like, it's just...
Yeah.
Maybe that was not a
static.
Good impersonation. Yeah, it's just straight static. It's very loud and obnoxious, and he says it's because he doesn't want Ariana to overhear his conversation.
Like, she gives a shit.
She doesn't care. So,
but at that time, he was still talking to Rachel, so I guess he did not want to be overheard talking to Rachel.
It's in the hallway, like outside of his door.
Yeah.
Blasting, which their hallway isn't that big. Ariana says, is this psychological warfare? And I think it is. I think that like this is him trying to push her out of the house. Like, I'm going to create as much chaos as I can to push you out. Because another thing, in this episode, he decides to throw a party at the house, which is why poor Anne is communicating between them. At the start of this episode, she is having to say Tom is having a birthday party, and Ariana is just like, if there's people here after midnight, I'm calling the police. And poor Anne is like, okay.
She's like, I understand. Yeah, I'll let him know. And I'm like, poor Anne. Because then Tom comes back and he's like, what if it's only this amount of people and they're gone by this time? And so then Anne has to then text Ariana and say, well, he still wants a birthday party here, but like he wants it to be like in this way. And I'm like, I would literally quit. I would be like, no, I'm not being a mediator between these two people all day long.
Yeah, she needs a raise.
I think she did quit. I heard that she quit this week. So I don't know who's the mediator now. Probably Schwartz, if we're being honest. But no, he's not.
No.
We're proud of Schwartz this week.
We are. So before we go to Schwartz, I want to talk about the party at his house. This is why I think it's psychological warfare, because why did you have the party at your house when you didn't even utilize the best space in the house, which is your pool and outside yard area? You utilized the kitchen, not even any living room area at all. You utilized the kitchen. That was where the party was taking place. That's why I think it's psychological warfare, because you're not, if you're going to have a party, why would you have it in your kitchen? Have it in the yard where there's a pool.
Well, and then why is that your first thought to have it there in the first place? One of your friends. By the way, all these people who showed up to his house, we've never heard of in our lives. Like, all of a sudden,
we've heard of Billy Lee.
Oh, have we heard of Billy Lee? She's a whole other ball game. But so we've not heard of any of these people. But could one of those friends not have thrown a party for you? Could you have gone to dinner somewhere? You liked being at the club the whole time you were in a relationship. Maybe go to the club. Go to the Abbey. How about that? Go to Tom Tom. Go to Schwartz and Sandy's. You know, like, you own these bars. Go do it somewhere else where you're not trying to make somebody's life miserable.
Yeah, so I think Ariana had every right to be like, no, I don't want this here. In this episode, we also see a lunch conversation with Schwartz and Sandoval. Schwartz did the complete opposite of what we have been saying that Schwartz does. He actually stood up for himself, set boundaries, and was like, dude, just say you're fucking sorry.
So proud of him. I was so proud of him in that moment. And you can see Tom Sandoval try to bulldoze over him, because what happens is Tom Schwartz starts being honest with him and is like, if you would just say sorry, you know, things might improve for you. And what Tom Sandoval does is he gets louder. He starts talking over him. And you see Tom Schwartz, I think for a second, kind of backpedal a little bit. But then, like, he kind of regains it and sticks his ground.
Yeah. You definitely see him try to, like, retreat in his shell of, like, okay, I'm going to let him do that. And then he was like, wait, no.
Yeah.
This is affecting me. Like, it's not just impacting you, Rachel, and Ariana. It's impacting me now because this is our business. And our business is suffering because you're a jackass.
Yeah. And you acted like that you did not care because while Schwartz was there dealing with the fallout at the restaurant, Tom Sandoval and his shitty cover band was traveling around America singing to God knows who would listen. And it was terrible. The cover band was terrible.
Yes, it was so bad. If you saw Tom Sandoval on tour, Godspeed to you.
Yeah. I know you suffered. I know you suffered through that.
Just go look up clips of how he was acting. When you look up these clips, remember, this is just very short amount of time after this whole situation went down, and he thought it was a really good idea to do this.
Rachel even attended like a couple of them.
Yeah. And that's why Tom Schwartz was so pissed about everything, because he was like, you're acting like you don't care. This doesn't show that you're remorseful at all. So, and again, Tom Sandoval has been doubling down on the fact that he is so in love with Rachel that he can't see anything else. I think that's one of the most frustrating parts, especially, which we'll get into this in a little bit, especially after listening to everything that Rachel has said.
And the stuff that he was saying to her while she was in the meadows.
That's probably the most disgusting part, because if you truly love someone, you're not going to say that shit to them.
Right. And their safety is going to be your number one priority. But we'll talk about that soon.
The next conversation we can go to that Tom Sandoval had was with James. So he invited James to his house for the birthday party. James showed up and was ready to have a conversation with him. But as soon as they start talking, Tom Sandoval decides to bring up shit that happened 10 years ago. About Kristen.
Yeah.
And I love how the producers on the show showed the clips and was like, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
This was
the Vanderpump Rules editors and producers are so petty. Like,
they are.
They have been the whole show. Like, I remember all the times that Jax would lie and he would be like, I didn't say that. And then they would immediately clip back to him saying it. Like 3 weeks earlier or something like that. They pull out the receipts.
But anyways, why are you bringing up stuff that James did, first of all, when he was 23 years old? 10 years ago, dude. That doesn't have any relevance to what's happening right now and what you just did 7 months ago. It's not the same.
I feel like he did it in a way, too, where he was, like, holding his apology hostage. So James said, are you going to apologize for the ultimate betrayal? And Tom says, well, first, we're going to bring this shit up from 10 years ago. So it's kind of like, we're going to bring that up first, and then maybe I'll apologize to you. No, that's not how that should go.
No. It's kind of like, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole of all the shit that you've done wrong to me, even though I've forgiven you for it, and haven't mentioned it in 10 years.
10 years.
And we've all moved on from it. But I'm going to bring it up just so you know that you've done me wrong, too. It's like, just say, I'm sorry I fucked up for this situation. I'm sorry that I paid for your entire Coachella themed engagement to Rachel and then decided to have an affair with her just a few months after you guys broke up.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me. And even James, so James went into this not really having any expectations, I don't think. Like, he was like, I'm going to have this conversation with him. And the second that Tom Sandoval even brought it up, James stands up and he's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it.
That was really good on James, because you're not going to get an apology. No one is going to get an apology, like a sincere, genuine apology from Tom Sandoval. So for James to just be like, if you're going to bring up stuff from 10 years, then I'm out. I'm done.
Right.
I'm not going to talk to you about this. And then he went outside and peed on their lemon tree.
I saw him on like the after show and he was like, I hope those lemons taste good.
That's such a James thing to do. Poor Allie, she was like, no, James, don't.
She said that's Ariana's bush too.
So I know we give Scheana a lot of shit, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But in this episode, I really felt for Scheana because she discussed her OCD, and she discussed the OCD surrounding, her daughter and the anxiety about leaving her with strangers or people that she doesn't really trust, and really just leaving her daughter in general and the anxiety that came with that. And when discussing her OCD symptoms, she was sitting there with her mom and her husband, and then a person that she actually trusted to come and babysit. Mm-hmm. So I connected with her in a sense that, I also have OCD. Mm-hmm. And seeing her be vulnerable and talking about it, and, Brock was talking about, all of Scheana's what ifs, and, I really felt for him in that instance of being that supportive person, because I can't imagine what Josh also goes through, listening to my what ifs, but also the diagnosis of OCD has kind of given name and offered some more understanding for him to be like, okay, that's what this is. So I understood when she was talking about all of the what ifs with her daughter, and she was in the interview and crying and everything, that I really connected with her on that, because it is really hard, because it's your mind literally beating you up mentally every single day, and hard for you to move on to the next task or do something. It just impacts your day to day so deeply.
And I appreciate you talking about it, because I know it's something that you've struggled with. I don't know if you're going to talk about it at all or not. But also, I think OCD is one of those diagnoses that people just hot button it and they throw it out there. So, you'll hear somebody clean up their room a little bit and they're like, well, it's just my OCD kicking in. Or straighten something up, like a picture on the wall. And they're like, well, it's my OCD. And I'm like, that's not always what it looks like for people. And a lot of times it's not what it looks like. A lot of times it's more debilitating than just being like, well, I like a clean space, so I'm going to clean this up. It's really something that, like you said, affects your day-to-day life and your ability to focus on almost anything else.
Yeah, and I think until I was really educated, because while we're in school and we're counselors, when you're in diagnosis, it's kind of like an overview of all the diagnosis, and you don't really go in depth into it. But when I started looking more and more into it, and I actually took a CEU on it, that was when I was like, okay, these thoughts that I'm having kind of fit in this category more so than what, just the generalized anxiety disorder that I have. Because in my head, I was doing the what if rabbit holes in my head. A lot of times I was doing the checking without verbalizing any of that. And I didn't really talk about it in therapy. But taking that CEU, I was like, maybe I should talk to my therapist about this. And that was when I started really talking about it and understanding it more. And also realizing that the medication that I was on for anxiety actually helps with OCD as well. And also talking about it with my therapist has alleviated a lot of this, because when, just in general, talk therapy, when you have all these thoughts in your head and you don't talk about them out loud, they just kind of play on a loop and just keep going through until you get them out. And when you actually just express them and verbalize them to another person that's in a room where there's no judgment and they're there to help you and support you, it feels completely different. And it has helped me so much. I don't do as much checking anymore. There are some days where, like this past week, I think that was we've talked about this, one of the biggest reasons why I was having a lot of focus issues was my what if rabbit holes that my brain was going down. And checking and rechecking and all of those things was really impacting me. And I think that's why I couldn't focus. Yeah, that's why I connect with Scheana on that level. And I really feel for her in this sense. And that's the only thing I really feel for her about. So.
And that's it for Scheana.
And that's it for Scheana. We're not good as gold, Scheana. Do you want to go over like clowning on Taylor really quick?
Yeah.
Recap that. So, we clowned really hard last week.
So hard. So, I wish I could paint. I should have painted my face as a clown today just to show.
Taylor did not announce Reputation, Taylor's version, at the Grammys, but she did announce a new album. So, that's going to be really good, obviously.
Very excited for the new album. So, her track list also got leaked this week. And so then she consequently like released it herself. And I already know that it's going to destroy me. I love Taylor for a lot of reasons, but she is so good with her lyrics. And I just already know that it's going to be such a lyrically strong album. For some reason, her albums written out of pain really like hit. So I think that's what this is going to be, because this is following her breakup from Joe. Her longest ever relationship.
Because Joe was already talking about it, and he's like, I don't want to be a part of her narrative anymore. Well, okay, buddy. So what I've read was one thing someone said out there, and I don't know who said it, but I thought it was really beautifully put. They got together because he didn't care that she was Taylor Swift. And they broke up because he didn't care that she was Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
So you should have expected this to come. Like, what did she say a few years ago? Like, if you don't want me to write a bad song about you, then don't do bad things.
Right.
So
Pat Williams also said something like that and was like, if people didn't want you to talk bad about them, maybe they should have treated you better. So I 100% am ready for this album. I like that her little tagline for it was all is fair in love and poetry, because to me, and I think I shared something like this on Instagram, but to me that just screams like, you treated me bad and now it's fair for me to talk about it. This is how I process it, so this is what we're doing. I'm here for it. Sorry, Joe, because it's about to be bad.
No. He didn't mind when she was writing all these love songs about him and everything, so you shouldn't mind when it's the complete opposite. Prepare yourself. You might get a worse time than Jake Gyllenhaal and John Mayer. So,
ooh, and that was rough.
I mean, All Too Well 10-minute version. You can't go anywhere without hearing that.
I feel like All Too Well is so good because I feel like lyrically, but also musically, if you listen to how the music goes throughout the whole song, it takes you from the beginning to the end of a relationship. In that entire story, it like musically, it starts off very like whimsical and hopeful, and then you kind of get to the part that in her music video she called the reeling, and the music is more like heartbreaking and sad, and then you get to the end and it's more like healing and like kind of coming to terms with it, and it's like almost an acceptance. So like I literally am like, this is an entire relationship built into 10 minutes right here.
Yeah And I struggle to find other musicians and artists, and maybe somebody can give me a suggestion out there, because I love lyrics. Lyrics are a huge piece of it that can tell a story the way that Taylor does.
Right.
Going into the main topic today. So we're going to talk about Rachel Goes Rogue, which is the name of Rachel / Raquel Levis's podcast.
And Rachel, like we said at the beginning, was the other woman in the Sandoval situation. I will say this. I'm going to put a disclaimer out, and this goes for every podcast ever that we do, not just this part, but I think it's important to put in this part. When we do therapy, we are considered like the experts in the room, you know? I want to make it very clear that we are not in this, and that we are just sharing our opinions that could change and that could fluctuate with like conversations that we have, the more research that we do into something, and that we are also humans on our own journey. We are both in therapy. We're both like figuring our own stuff out. So like you might hear things that are like different from what we said last week, or, you know, maybe we can maybe sound a little like callous towards things sometimes and then kind of come around and realize, oh, maybe I didn't see this side of it. But we are also still learning and growing. So I just want to put that out there to kind of put that as an expectation that you'll probably hear us at times say things like, well, I felt like this, but then maybe I had some conversations, did some soul searching, and maybe I kind of feel differently about this now.
Yeah, because, I mean, like she said, we're human too. So our thoughts and opinions can grow the more information that we get in a situation. And in this situation, in general, we did more research and we heard more of Rachel's side of things instead of just the kind of like screen grabs.
We just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. And I hope we don't come off as, not empathetic. Because when we listen back to what we've said, I think it gives us a different opinion and maybe we were a little harsh and a little judgmental towards this situation. Big apology from Verified Therapist to Rachel Levitt.
Yeah.
Kind of prejudging before we fully listen to the podcast and her side of things, because we've heard two sides, but we hadn't really listened to her side. And we're going to preface this of the reason why this episode is called what it is. My side, your side, and the truth. There's 3 sides to every story. There's Tom and Ariana and Rachel's side of things. And I think somewhere in the mix of all of that is the truth.
Right. Because everything is filtered through our own experiences. And this is how I kind of explain it to clients too, is we have this almost camera film on our brains that is created by all these past experiences. So when we come into a situation, or even when we're just observing a situation, that comes through like a filter through all of our past experiences. So I think just on a personal level, that was kind of my beef with Rachel. I've experienced not too long ago a time that I felt like a friend really betrayed me and hurt me and did not take accountability for that. And so I was kind of projecting my thoughts of her not being a good friend and her being hurtful. And while those things are still valid and true, it kind of caused me to not look at the Rachel side of it, which we're going to talk more about, but and her experiences.
Rachel has created this podcast where she's kind of talking about her side of everything that's going on. And listening to it, she is growing and she is changing. And I think she is becoming a lot more self-aware than what we saw when she was on the show. Rachel, on her podcast, she has had a couple of different therapists on there, and they've talked about what she's experienced on the show and what she's experienced even putting out this podcast. So one thing that has been talked about a lot is Rachel either smiles at inappropriate times, laughs at inappropriate times, or is just kind of completely looking emotionless. And we saw that at the reunion where she looked completely emotionless. There was a time that she got up and walked off of the reunion. But even then, you didn't really see any kind of emotion one way or the other. One thing that she did the first couple episodes was she was talking about the affair and the whole situation, and you could tell that she was smiling and kind of giggling through a lot of it. And then she had a therapist on one of the next episodes and talked about how that was how she coped with things. That was her trauma response to a lot of things, was to just smile and try to, if she put on a smile, then she wasn't going to feel all of those deep emotions that she was actually feeling. So it's kind of a way to just push them down by putting a smile on your face, and also a way to diffuse everything around you. So if you put a smile on your face, can someone really yell at you? It kind of makes them look like an asshole if you're smiling and they're screaming at you. So it was kind of a defense tactic that she learned. And I also think that her shutting down at the reunion was a way to protect herself because she knew that she was going into the lion's den. Nothing that she said, nothing that she did was going to change Ariana's reaction towards her.
Yeah.
She could have been the most apologetic person and crying and begging at Ariana's feet, and Ariana would have still been like, fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at that point, it was like self-preservation and surviving the reunion. I also think that just some background on Rachel, she did pageants. And I know that that's kind of been something that's been brought up as a joke on the show. But I think that her doing the pageants and having that experience is kind of what's encouraged the narrative of like smiling and getting through it, pushing down whatever you're dealing with, plastering a smile on your face, and almost disassociating from whatever you're feeling. If you're having a bad day, if you're having a bad, time, disassociating from that and like doing what needs to be done to get this pageant taken care of or to get through this situation with Tom and Ariana.
Yeah, the smile was her protection from everything. That was what she talked about with the therapist on there of like, I'm going to try my hardest to notice when I'm smiling in this uncomfortable thing and fight it off. And you hear her, even though this podcast has just been going on for what, like a month now, you hear the change that she has made in that. Right. Because when she's talking about these more difficult things by chapter 8, she isn't really smiling and laughing as much as she was in episode 1.
She's kind of taking it more like, almost like she's really taking it in more, like what her guests are saying, what these therapists and these experts are telling her. I felt like I can hear her kind of processing and trying to learn from it.
Yeah, she's unlearning these behaviors that at one time her brain created to protect her, but now it's not protecting her anymore. It's harming her. So she's trying to unlearn these behaviors.
We've talked a lot about her most recent episode. I think it was really interesting to hear her side of the love bombing. I also thought it was really interesting because the person that she had on there talked about how this concept of love bombing was derived from, like, we would see it in like cult like situations or like religious, like really strong religious organizations that would use this tactic to get people in, make them feel like they were connected and belonged, but then eventually use as a control tactic. And I think that that's what Tom did to her.
Yeah.
Sucked her in and then got her to a place to where it was control at that point.
And I mean, we see this a lot with narcissists in general, of they prey on the vulnerable. So a lot of times when someone goes through a really traumatic breakup, for example, that's exactly what happened with Rachel. She went through a very traumatic breakup and Tom saw that vulnerability and hopped on it and took advantage of that. And Rachel was at a time where she just wanted support and she wasn't getting support from anyone. And she said this, in a couple episodes of she felt so alone and she did not feel safe. And when she broke down in season 10 in the car after, sharing a lot of deep things that happened in her relationship with James, with those girls, she did not feel safe talking to them. She didn't feel like it wasn't going to be used as like another plot line or anything. So she just wanted out of that situation, and that's why she had a panic attack in the back of the car. And I think having more context to that, offered me a lot more empathy in that, because I was kind of, when I watched that, obviously we had known about the affair by the time that I had watched that episode in particular, and I was just like, oh, this girl's just feeling guilty. This girl is just doing this to put on a show. But kind of listening to, I have a completely different view on that.
Well, and just hearing how Tom continued to talk to her when, so for anyone who needs context on this, the affair broke at the end of the season. They did the reunion, And that was the first time that any of them had really like sat in the room together. So obviously this reunion was very explosive. Almost immediately after the reunion, Rachel, known as Raquel back then, went into an inpatient trauma treatment center. I think, was it in Arizona? It was, yeah, it was like in a different state. So she was there for a while because, and she said in her recent podcast, she did not feel safe like by herself with all that was going on. Like she thought that she might do something to harm herself. So that's where she felt like that she needed to be safe. And Tom was still being controlling and manipulative to her when she was in that space. And I almost argue that that's more like, that's probably the most vulnerable in her life. After she's had this affair happen, she's mental health wise in a very low spot, and she's trying to work on that and get help. And for him to say things like, you left me out here to just deal with it, deal with the fallout on my own, still sending her gifts to help them feel connected, and doing these things that really was, again, taking advantage of her in a very vulnerable spot.
Because he was sending her all these gifts, and there was one thing that she talked about is like he sent her all of these gifts to stay connected. Like there was a lamp that was connected by, Bluetooth or whatever, and when one person turned it on, the other person's like it would light up too. So it was a way for them to stay connected. But in that box of these gifts that he had sent, he also wrote her a letter calling her selfish that she was in this inpatient facility. So there was like this, like she was getting two different sides of things. Like she was like, I'm trying to heal, I'm trying to stay here and do better, and he's sending me gifts, like, so he must be really supportive. But then you open the letter, and instead of hearing the support, you hear what a shitty person you are.
And what that does to your brain, like to get those kinds of messages from someone that you feel that you love more than anything in the world. And I say feel that you love because I don't think that that's real love, but in the moment, that's how you feel. Like you could tell and you could hear it that she felt that that was her only person in the world. And like she said, she had a lot of thoughts of like, what if I don't ever find somebody who loves me ever again? Like, what if I never experience this again? And that's how those tactics and those manipulation techniques, that's how they get people, because it is so natural for us to want connection and belonging and feel close and intimate with other people. That's a natural thing. So those tactics and those techniques kind of come in and infiltrate and prey on those natural desires for those things.
Yeah, and I think it shows the insecurity of Tom Sandoval too, of like, I don't think I'm good enough to get a person who is like mentally stable and mentally like okay. So I'm going to go out and find someone that I can overpower and control.
It all comes back, and I think this a lot in practice as well. So many things come back to trauma and how our needs are met as kids. Like, so many of our adult relationships can be tied back to those things. That desire and that search for validation. One quote that I've read is like, if you're not handed love on a silver spoon, then you'll be licking it off of knives. So like, so like, if you're not given that and those emotional needs aren't met, someone might look for that in very unhealthy ways and very unhealthy relationships.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you see Rachel doing. Because her and James's relationship was not healthy either. It was very toxic, and that was also fueled by a lot of alcohol too. But then she also said, on the other hand, even when he was sober, he was still acting this way. So I want to talk about the ingredients. So one thing that the therapist that she had on talked about was there aren't bad ingredients, but when you put certain ingredients together, they're explosive. So, like baking soda and vinegar, you put those together, it explodes. But then you put vinegar and oil together, and it becomes a salad dressing. It's really good. And you know, you put baking soda with flour and sugar and all this stuff, and you can, you know, bake cookies. So these ingredients themselves are not bad, but put together, they're bad. And I think a lot of that relationship, all the relationships that we've seen Tom and James have been very explosive. So maybe they're not bad people or bad ingredients, but the people that they are mixing with are not good for them.
I think it goes back to Tom's lack of self-awareness. We saw an article this week of him calling his new girlfriend of a week his new addiction.
Yeah.
That's love bombing. That's unhealthy. And again, that's him putting his ingredients with someone who there's a strong possibility that's going to explode because he's already kind of doing the same thing with that person.
What we've heard from kind of like from a psychological standpoint of when you get into a new relationship, there is this immediate high that you get of, they say it's very like your brain waves and endorphins send off the same amount of endorphins as when you snort cocaine. That's the same thing of what falling in love per se feels like. Like it's the same amount of endorphins. I think Tom is addicted to that feeling of falling in love. I don't want to call him an addict.
No, but that's what I think he could be because we see love and sex addicts, and that's what it is. It's the reward center of your brain going off. I've said the same thing to my therapist about situations that I've been in, and I'm like, I just really want some dopamine. I really want dopamine fix from this. You know, my family has a history of addiction, and my brain is like predisposition to that, and I recognize that in myself of like I can relate to Tom on that I kind of would chase that feeling of like that high that you get from it, because it is a high, you know.
It is, yeah. I mean, we've all felt it. Like, if we've all been in a new relationship, we've all felt those endorphins, and we're like, heck yeah, this is the best thing ever. But to build a sturdy foundation for a relationship that needs to last, it can't just be based on those big feelings. You know, you have to have the same values, same morals. All of these things have to align with this person, or it's not going to work out. And that's why when I work with clients who have just been through a bad relationship or are even struggling to get in relationships, we go through this piece that I have of different values and what is most important to them. You know, there's over 100 values on this little worksheet, and we put them together of like, what is most important to you, least important to you. And we have it on a scale. And then out of those most important to you, what are the 10 most important to you? And then we break it down even more of like, what are the 5 most important to you? And then we go into not just you, but in another person. Yeah, so out of those values, what do you want from your partner or even a friend?
Yeah. And I think that that's something that we see, like when we watch Tom, and I could be wrong, Tom and Rachel could have had these conversations of what their life looks like beyond this whole thing. I could be wrong when I say this, but it does not look like that they have that conversation or that connection. It looks like this is a hot and heavy thing that feels fun because it's deceptive.
Yeah.
That's just as a viewer what it looks like. Again, we don't know what happened behind closed doors, but I don't think, just based off what we've seen, that there was any thought of what happens when this all blows up. How, like Tom said to her, I want to give this relationship, or he at least said it on the show, I want to give our relationship a chance, and I'm in love, but I don't know that he knows what that looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know if he knows what a relationship with her would look like, because I don't think that he knows those things about her.
No, I don't even think he knows those things about himself. I don't think he even knows what he values most in this world. Because we haven't really seen him ever turn inward and look at himself as the problem. Because another thing that Rachel talks about on the podcast is he was talking to her like, when I break up with Ariana, you're going to still be on the show, and they're going to turn on Ariana, and they're going to be your new cheerleaders, just like they did with Kristen. Because for those of you who haven't seen the show, Tom and Kristen were together for 6 years. Kristen Doty. And he cheated on Kristen Doty with Ariana, allegedly. But they did make out at the Golden Nugget.
I fucking love that place.
She was like, that is so low.
And he's like, wow, I fucking love that place.
But he cheated on Kristen with Ariana, and then you kind of see the world turn, or the viewership of Vanderpump turn on Kristen and love Ariana very quickly. Even though she was the other woman coming into the situation, they chose to support her.
Back her. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, I got away with this once, I can get away with it again. And that's how he presented it to Rachel. And she was in this like, oh, okay, he's going to protect me in this. He's going to be the person that I can go to for all of this, even if I get hate.
And when you're in that kind of toxic, like, relationship, it's kind of Stockholmy in that, like, the person that, and they talk about this in, like, the cycle of abuse and abusive relationships, but the person who's hurting you, you think is the person who's going to protect you. So you almost lean into that more. I'm trying to think about how Rachel said it in her podcast. Oh, she was talking about the frog and boiling water analogy, about how it gradually happens. A frog's not going to immediately get out because it doesn't realize it's boiling because it's been so gradual that it doesn't notice. And it will sit in there and it will die. It will let the water kill it before it jumps out.
Just that slow, gradual buildup of a toxic relationship, because when it starts off with love bombing, you don't see it. You're just like, oh, this person's bringing me flowers. Oh, this person's sending me gifts. Oh, this person is saying that they're going to be there for me. They're going to be my protector. But their actions don't always line up with what they promise.
Well, and saying things like, I love you, I'm going to marry you, I'm going to have this future with you, when you've known that person for a week, or you've only been romantically involved for a week. Like, that's love bombing. You know, that's building up this fantasy and this future and setting off those endorphins. If that's what, you know, you want, it's kind of leading you down this path that's not really, it's not stable, you know?
Yeah. It's not a good foundation to build your relationship on. Rachel also talks about closure too, and how at first she kind of wanted closure with Tom, but now she's kind of at the point where she's like, no, I don't want to, because if she reaches out to him to be like, hey, we need to have a conversation, that's opening a door for him to come back into her life. Even if it's just a crack, it's still a way for her to let him back in at least a little bit, and making that connection. And that therapist said, you know, why would you want to pretty much talk to a person that has caused you like the biggest injury of your life? Why would you want to allow them back into your life to just injure you again? Yeah. Because you don't know how that closure is going to go.
Well, and as someone who can very much relate to that, there's going to be a part of her that still would want to hear him out, or that would sit and listen to what he had to say. And one last conversation, like you said, just opens that door and provides more of an opportunity for him to come in and manipulate the situation and the conversation. A lot of times closure's on the person. Like, we hear closure a lot in these relationships of like, well, I just needed closure, so I reached out to them. And maybe there's some truth to that for some people, but also it's okay to just fucking block them and walk away.
Yeah.
That's just as much closure as everything else. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If someone has, done you so wrong, and you block them, and then they're like, why did they block me? You know what you did. Mm-hmm. I have in my personal life, I've done that a couple of times. You've said that you've done that too. And I actually had a person reach out after I blocked them, reach out to my best friend and be like, hey, why did Kate block me? You know what you did to get to this place. For me to say, I don't even want to talk to you ever again. Right. You hurt me so bad. There's nothing that you can say that's going to rectify this situation. And you know what? I don't need, as Taylor Swift said, I don't need your closure.
Yep, I agree. You don't. And what it is that you find closure in yourself. You find closure in letting go of that relationship. Sometimes it's like I'm just full of like imagery today, but it's like if you're driving down the road and you're holding on to a car from the back and you're getting dragged along the road, there's almost more closure in letting go of that rope and then like letting yourself heal from that than continuing to hold on to this car that's dragging you.
Because it's just going to keep hurting you even more than if you just like let go and then started the healing process right then and there when you let go. And I love this because I've had clients do this so many times of writing a letter to that person that they want some kind of closure from, writing a letter to them with zero intentions of giving it to them. So you don't hold back when you have zero intentions of giving it to this person. And then they burn it.
Yeah, burn that shit.
Yeah. Like that is the best thing. Me and my sister-in-law back in like 2011, I think, did that after a breakup that I had. I didn't even know it was a therapeutic thing because I was a little 15-year-old.
Little baby, yeah.
Little baby. She was like, write a letter and then we'll burn it outside. And that's exactly what I did. And I felt so much better after that. That's kind of how you have to get closure sometimes is it's really for you, not the other person.
Right. And it's okay. Like when I heard Rachel's podcast and she was like, I felt like that I should explain to him. I felt like that I should reach out and just kind of explain. No, it's okay. You don't always have to explain. Actually, you don't ever have to explain if you don't want to, but you don't have to explain to someone why they're being harmful to you. You don't have to. Yeah.
Also, what he said to the therapist, some people are going to see you as this frozen in time image, and there's nothing you can do that they're ever going to not see you from that. And that's their problem. If they don't want to see like the growth and change, then that's their own problem. And you don't have to explain that you've done all this work and you're doing better and you're not reacting the same way as you did then. So, because her worst moments were televised. What made me step into like the more empathetic, we don't know these people at all. We see what we see from the television series of what the producers show us. And the producers can manipulate very easily because they have a job to do and their job is to make good television. And this show is very good television, but there's also characters that they build. I mean, there has to be different drama throughout. Like someone has to be the villain. This season, it's Tom Sandoval. And the victim this season is very much so Ariana.
Yeah.
So there's these different roles that each character has to play. That's what they were showing Rachel for all the seasons before, was these different characters. And then they also showed some of her worst moments. And I think when you have your worst moments publicly televised for the world to see and the world to judge, that is so difficult, because then how are you supposed to change and grow from that when you walk down the road and people still see this character that they saw on TV of like, oh, you are, this mistress. That's going to be your title forever, because that's what we saw you as on TV. But it's like, well, I'm actually not that person. that was a part of me. Yes, that's what I did. Yes, but that's not who I am, and that didn't align with my morals. But no one else is going to see that. Like, they're still just going to see this one, go back to the frozen in time image of you.
Yeah. That's why I think, like, in media, cancel culture can be so harmful because it doesn't...
Can you hear Banks?
Yeah. He's just here for his, like, regular appearance.
He's not allowed in here. Oh my gosh. Come here. No, he just has to go shit, so his litter box is in here.
But cancel culture is so quick to tear people down and to be like, this is what you did wrong. But there's hardly any room for, like, redemption from that. TikTok, the media, paparazzi, gossip sites, they don't care about how this person, like, works on improving themselves to become better people. They just care about getting the story about how they screwed up. So once you've screwed up and you've hit that rock bottom, they're done with you and you're spit out. And it's dangerous because I can't imagine, like you said, my worst moments playing out for millions of people. So
to be judged.
And I think too, because I know that we harped a lot on the idea of accountability for a second.
Yeah.
I don't take that back because I still think that there's a lot of room that Rachel has in taking accountability. I think that she still has a lot of room to grow on that. I don't think that we've seen the accountability that it would take to even start that road back. But I see her doing more than Tom Sandoval.
Yeah.
To try to get there.
For sure.
So did she come out swinging with an I'm sorry? And no, should she have? Yes. But I think that she's on her way there.
Yeah, I do too. And I think this podcast is really humanizing her too. And I don't think that she should have gone back on the show now. I'm changing my tune. I don't think that she was ready for that. I think she would have been, again, like the reunion, walking into the lion's den, and she would have gotten ate up and spit out so quick. And it wouldn't have been good for her mental health. I think she would have, she probably would have gone back to Tom Sandoval because that was the only person that would have been there for her. But even then, that's still a manipulation tactic because he's the reason why she's isolated. I don't think it would have been good for her at all. I think that's why, and maybe if they had picked up filming now, it would be a little bit different, but just allowing her even more time to separate herself from that situation, because sometimes that's what you need for you to even see the wrong in a situation. You need time apart from it and really do some work, and you don't need to immediately jump back into it. And they immediately jumped back into it, and you see that with all these fresh emotions.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, Binks is here.
Say hi, Binks. Want to say hi? Say hi.
Speak your truth.
Speak your truth, bub. What do you think about Rachel? What do you think about Rachel?
His glare says it all.
He is always glaring. So I think now he wants out. Hold on. He really just wanted to take a shit, and that's it.
And dip.
You want to trade places? Come on, Jake. Jiggy. Right, everybody meet Jiggy Vanderpump.
Now Jiggy's here. His full government name is Gigolo Vanderpump.
The sex monster has arrived. The sex monster. You okay, bud? Okay. He's not big on being held, so except Josh. He actually loves being held by Josh, which is weird. So
he's got away with him. Connected.
Yeah, they are connected. So, anyways, back into it.
I also think producers, no shade to the producers, because like you said, they have a job to do. But I think that they would have also forced a lot of, like, even if Rachel went on and said, okay, I'm not going to have contact with Tom, They would have forced them to, just to have the content.
Yeah, they would have forced her to have a conversation with Ariana, and I wonder how that would go. Honestly, I wonder now how the conversation with Ariana would go. Whereas, before it was kind of a few months after. Now we're a year after everything happened. I wonder how this conversation would go.
Right. If it would be any different. Like, if Ariana would be more understanding, maybe. Or, understanding is a stretch. If Ariana would have more empathy.
I don't know if I don't think she'll ever be friends with Rachel. But I think maybe just giving her the opportunity to talk would happen now. Whereas before, if she was put in a room with Rachel, I think those producers would have had to drag Ariana out of there because I don't think she would have held back.
Oh, no. It would have been bad.
And
it was bad at the reunion. Verbally, it was bad.
Verbally, it was really, really bad. And it wasn't just Ariana that was giving it to Rachel. It was everybody. Everybody was going in on her. Lala screamed at her. James was, he was a little passive aggressive towards her. He was more aggressive towards Tom, but he was very passive aggressive towards Rachel. And Katie let her have it a couple of times, and then Ariana really let her have it. Like, for those of you who didn't watch the reunion, she said, what did she say? I hope you go fuck yourself with a cheese grater.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, she did say that.
She was like, I wish you nothing but the worst.
Yeah, and then I won't ever forget, because I just felt like it hit, and it's not even like that intense or anything, but she said, you're rotten, like a moldy piece of fruit down to your core, you're rotten. And you could just see the disgust on Ariana's face.
I think a lot of that anger was directed at Rachel and should have been directed at Tom. But also, if you've ever been in Ariana's position, then you know how much you can't see anything but your anger. And you see red in those situations. And yes, Tom betrayed her. She really let him have it too. But also this other person that was betraying you and was lying to your face for months on end and talking to you about your sex life with your boyfriend, because that's exactly what Rachel did. Rachel was asking Ariana about her sex life with Tom while she was actively sleeping with Tom.
Yeah.
It was really kind of icky things happening. And of course, you're going to see red in those situations, and you're going to say anything that pops up in your mind. And that's what Ariana did. She really let her have it. And Rachel talks about that too on the podcast, about they were like, when you were talking to Ariana about her sex life with Tom, where did that come from? Why would you ask that? That's horrible. And she was like, yes, it makes me cringe looking back. She was like, the lightning, she bought a lightning necklace, which was her and Tom's thing. It's really weird, because that was a storyline on the show.
It was, yeah.
And then she was talking to Ariana about her sex life with Tom. She was like, I am disgusted with myself that I did that. But also she was trying to figure out, because she was getting one story from Tom and she was trying to figure out Ariana's side. I think she was just trying in her mind to try to piece it together, but it was a really disgusting way to do it. And she was like, I shouldn't have done it. So, which is something that we've never seen Tom do. Tom's never been like, I shouldn't have done this.
Right. Tom's been like, well, you did this to me, so it was okay for me to do that to you.
Yeah. He's never been like, ooh, I just cringed at my behavior. No, he doesn't cringe at anything he does. He's probably like, oh my God.
His cover band is evidence of that.
Yes.
YouTube, Tom Sandoval, the most extras, covering Stacy's mom, and you'll be done. That's going to tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah. And also realized that this was right after everything happened. So, also look up Tom Sandoval getting carried by JoJo Siwa.
When he went on that, what was that show called? He was on that show where all these reality stars went to New Zealand and had to do like these military grade things and see if they could make it. And did Nick Vile and him get along on that show? Because there's no way they could have gotten along. They did?
I think they did. Because that's where Nick said that in that, like, he understood Tom more because they were on that mountain together. And
gotcha.
Yeah. So I didn't watch the show, so I don't know exactly if they got along or not. But I just know that Nick got to know him while they were on that mountain together.
Gotcha. Because Tom Sandoval just sounded like he came in with beef to his podcast. So I was like,
he came in with a vengeance. He was ready to
fight.
You have anything else you want to say about Rachel?
No.
Also, I just want to say she looked really good at New York Fashion Week. So,
yeah, she did.
She still looks like a Bambi-eyed bitch, but that's just because she has that. She has that, like, and that's not insulting. Lala said it insulting. I'm saying it because she has these like doe eyes.
Yeah, my mascara that I'm wearing is called Bambi Eyes.
Bambi Eyes.
I thought every time.
You a Bambi-eyed bitch right now.
Run and tell that.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys will give us a little grace for, learning and growing along with Rachel too.
We're all learning and growing together.
Yeah. And just because we're therapists, like Autumn said at the beginning, we're not always the experts. So
no, we are very much not. Sometimes I'm still like, I'm a fetus therapist because I don't know what I'm doing half the time. So we're just people, So we've reached the end of episode 3.
Yes. And please send us all of your feedback. We have Instagram if you want to follow us on there, and just send us a message with your feedback. We also have a TikTok as well.
Follow us.
Yeah, so let's go into our intentions for the week. You want to go first?
I can. So before we even got started, if people don't know this about you, they're about to know this about you. Kate drinks a lot of water, like all the time. She drinks a lot of water. Look at her hydro jug.
Shout out to my friend Brittany, who got me this for being in her wedding party. This was like her gift to her bridesmaids.
That's a perfect gift. So I'm now inspired to drink more. I suck at drinking water. Like, I suck at drinking anything. If I'm not eating, I'm not paying attention. I don't really get thirsty, except if it's like 2:00 in the morning and I've woken up and I feel like I've not drank anything for 2 days.
Then you're just chugging water.
Yeah. So my intention this week is going to be to drink more water, be more hydrated, because it helps with everything in life, mental health, physical health, all of it. So that's my intent.
That's a good one. Well, my intention for the week is to do my notes on time. Since that was a low for this week, I need to do my notes on time because I work in private practice. So when insurance pays, I get paid. And insurance sometimes takes a week to pay out, or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So I need money. And I shouldn't delay doing my notes until Thursday or Friday. It also causes me a lot of anxiety at the end of the week when I have 20 notes on the list.
Right. Makes me anxious just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's not fun.
So those are good intentions, I think.
Hopefully there'll be some good content, Taylor content, tonight at the Super Bowl. I heard through the grapevine that she is at the game, or she will be at the game. She's in Las Vegas,
so she'll be there. I can't wait to see her.
She'll be there. Yeah. Travis got a suite for his family and her. So
I heard he spent a pretty penny for it too.
Yeah, I heard it was over $1 million.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
That is insane that they have to pay that.
But anyways, well, those are our intentions for the week.
So follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, Let us know what you want to hear or see, and we can't wait to hear from you guys.
Yeah, we will be back with another episode next week, and have a good week, okay?
Yeah. Okay, love you, bye.
Bye-bye.